Okay, so today our topic is request reply. Okay, so before moving to request reply, I want to. So I briefly talked about this in one of our last class, but just want to understand if you are able to grasp that fully. So, are you clear about synchronous versus asynchronous interfaces?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so what is the difference?
Uh, so in synchronous, we are instantly getting a reply from the for
Hmm.
sending the reply, right? In asynchronous, we just send the request and we don't wait for the reply.
Yes, that is correct. So there's just a fine tuning to that. See, in case of async, also you can get an instant reply. So that's not the correct definition. The correct definition is that in case of synchronous, it's fire and forget concept. Sorry, in case of async,
Asynchronous, yeah.
async is nothing. I'm getting an echo from your side. I think you're not using earphones, no? Maybe that's why. Okay. So fire and forget means that. So what is synchronous? Synchronous is the sender or the consumer of the service will wait till the response comes. So typically, we use the async case for cases where the response times are expected in a milliseconds, microseconds, or something, right? So it's like instant. But there are cases where we are using synchronous cases, but the response time is very long. So what is the downside to that, right? So let's say it is very typical, right? When we do UPI, right? Sometimes it is very irritating that, especially in some of the UPI wallet apps, it takes a long time, right? Maybe because of their software issue, or it could be due to internet also, right? So till the time you get a response, your app gets hanged, right? You cannot do anything else because it is waiting for that response. So that is the downside of synchronous. But on the bright side, that uh, you'll almost the way it is designed, the asynchronous is that you will typically get an instant response, right? So user will wait, the software or application will wait, but in case of async we don't wait. Okay, so now why I talked about this concept. The reason is the palette. This is called a palette, one of the palettes. For example, content modifier is also one of the palette functions in cloud integration. So similarly, we have a palette function called request reply. So this request reply is a palette function which is used to design the interface synchronously. Okay, so let's look at how we design this. So let's create a fresh so that the steps are recorded, and in case you want to follow, you can follow. So I go to my package, click on add integration flow, the usual steps, right? So request reply as demo. Okay, add and open. Okay, so this is what you get always. So I go to edit mode. Okay, so sender I connect to. This is the step that you always do. So you should be pretty familiar with this. So I connect the sender. As soon as I connect the sender, it asks for an adapter. Okay, so this is what, right? If you would have been in PI, you would have been doing somebody who was doing PI, then I would relate to him that this is related to the channel, right? So typically in PI, there's a concept of channel. So here also, it can be the dotted line can be called as channel, right? So I connect the sender to the integration process via a channel, and this channel is using this adapter called HTTPS adapter, and in that adapter, I put my requested address. Okay. Now,
Okay, one
hmm.
question here. This is manual. We can put anything in address, or it is something which we have already as an constant or something, and we need to prepare.
No, no, no. You can put anything in the. This is address, unique address to your iFlow.
Okay.
Yeah, you can put anything here. Okay, so I this is. I mean, I can find somewhere from here as well, but I usually use this because this is easy. Search feature, request reply. Okay, so and just typically, one of the things that is we should design our iFlow in a pretty way so that it's easy to read. So that is the reason I dragged the receiver down below, because that way the line will not overlap the end. But that's not a rule. Like, I mean, you can keep it anywhere you like. Also, a thing to note is that though I think though we will be using a HTTP address here, if you see when I'm doing a receiver adapter, it is always HTTP because it is used for both HTTP to call a HTTP address and HTTPS address as well. So don't get confused. So we can use it to call the HTTPS address as well. These are free public APIs, so there is no authentication currently. Very good for practicing. And what else? So this URL supports get only. I'll also show you when I do post what happens then, right? Just as a interesting thing to observe. Okay, so I have activated, and let me put on trace as well. And let's go to Postman. I will. So my request name is request reply. I was just doing this. So So in Postman, what I typically do is just to save some of the typing because authorization already and host are already configured for me. I take a previous request and I click on duplicate after clicking on the three dots, right? So that helps me save some of the typing, typically the developer shortcut, right? So since I've already created one, let me name it two and let me correct the endpoint. Okay. I'll repeatedly mention these terms so that you can store it in your mind as well. This is endpoint. Right. Authorization is the same, so I don't need to change it. Um, right? Since today is it's this one is a short one, I'll cover a few additional concepts. Like we'll talk about additional authorization option, the OAuth one, right after this. Once you grasp this, we will switch to that. Okay, so nobody. Let me actually. This is post. So let me actually try with nobody first. Okay, so basically it's a fixed request right now, and it's surprisingly in French, but we just want to use it for demo purpose, so we are okay. And even if you send a body, it is throwing the same, right? So, but our purpose is not to manipulate the body. Our purpose is more to understand the concept. So let's go to offer request reply. Okay, so you see all green here. Since I did not send any body, right? And the headers are what we sent. So we didn't particularly send anything. So there's not much to look at here, right? But what there's a couple of things that we should try now. Let's send this body and see how it overwrites, right? So I can still see the same body, and I will go back to my iFlow. Uh, so here I sent this body, right? So just remember, so we didn't talk about this tool at a length, but just quickly. So the CPI helper, this button is the activate trace for. I mean, trace you activate before you run, and then this is like a debugger, right? So I click on here, and it will show me, that the message has traversed, and then at which point you want to see the message details, you just double click on the green portion. For example, if I click here, my body is overwritten, right? And this is very common, guys. So, and this is one of the reasons that we use content modifier in some case or Groovy, right? So, what if I want to reuse this body, right? Then what will I do? I will store the content body in a content modifier. Okay, so and then this button takes you to the detail trace page, which we manually usually go, right? Since this is additional software, it is just making your work easy. So this is the detailed trace page, and many times we have to use it. Sometimes that page is not very user friendly to see the details. So here, if I want to like really dig down deeper, then I come to this detail page, and then I can see okay how the message traveled. I can see the log content and message content separated by headers, exchange properties, and payload, and how at every step my payload is changing. Right. So next, next, and then my payload is overwritten, right? So this is why I go to this, right? And then this shows new logs in a new tab, and this is show log viewer in this page. So typically we use this and this most of the times, but there are other features as well. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to do one more thing here before I give the floor to you for questions. Okay, so I will do two things here. Okay, one is this content modifier, where I will create a property, payload, sorry, payload expression. So this is dollar in dot body. Okay, okay, and then I will create another content modifier. Sorry.
So, have you started recording for this session?
Hmm.
No.
Yeah. Uh, payload. Okay, I might have to. Okay. Okay, let's see, guys. I'm pretty bad at remembering the syntax, so hopefully this works. Otherwise, we'll troubleshoot the syntax. That will also be good learning, I hope. Okay, where is the deployment status? It is deployed. Let's see. Okay, I wanted to do one more thing. Sorry. Okay, so new payload. I want to use body, so I hope you guys remember this. Okay, let's try this. Okay, voila. I never expected it to work in just one shot, but it did. That's good. Okay, so did you guys understood what we did and how we did it? This is also an example of logging the payload. Typically, we log the payload using Groovy script, but we can also do it using a content modifier. Like, I mean, if it's a simple requirement, then of course content modifier is a good way to do it because you don't need to code. So surprisingly, you will see the good practices in a platform like BTP IS is coding is always not a good practice, right? We typically, when we, especially when you come from a coding background, you think that, oh, if I'm not doing more coding, it is like I'm being seen as a not a good uh, technical consultant. But that's not the point. The more you can avoid coding is that you are creating a iFlow which can be executed or operated by anyone. I mean, maintained by rather. Okay. So questions, concerns, Ganeshwari?
Can you explain the flow? I did not understand actually.
Good. Okay. Yeah, sure. I can do that. So let's use the trace to do that. Okay. Trace is the best way to understand. Okay. So this is my sender. What is my sender here, Ganeshwari? In my flow, what is the sender?
HTTP adapter.
No, that is just an adapter. That is a channel, right? But what is my
Hmm.
sender here? Which is actually outside of CPI.
Postman.
Yeah. So Postman, that is your source of the data, correct? Then it is traveling through HTTP adapter. Then first step, what I did was I put a content modifier, right? This we used in the last class. So here, what I did was I created an exchange property. Remember, three parts of a content modifier or any message. Any
Yeah.
message has these three parts within the purview of CPI: header, property, message. This I can play around with. Okay. So I created a property. See, action is here, create. Okay. And then I named the property as payload, and source type is these many options are there. I use expression. So any variable I mean, any expression that I will write, I will use the source type as expression. Then source value is in dot body. So remember we used it in the last class as well. In dot body does what? It will store the payload, complete payload body, nothing else, like not the header, not the property, just the body. Fine.
Yeah.
So last message, what we did is, right, we were just overwriting the message or retaining the message, right? And we use for retaining the message, I use the same syntax if you remember. But that's not the real use, right? The real use is something like this, right? So it could be a case that you are sending a payload, and in this payload you're using some properties which are used to make a body further for sending as a request for a further rest based service, right? And then but in the final output you need to show the new output as well as the old output, right? I mean, this is just an example. So it could be that you only need to see new output, not the old output. In this case, I use the both just for a demo, right? So after that, this is a pipeline. Remember, I told you that an iFlow or interface is nothing but a pipeline. So in this pipeline, after this step, right? After this step, your let's look at how your payload looks like. Okay, sometimes it takes time. One second. Okay. Okay, sometimes this happens with CPI helper. So the only solution to that is refresh your page or go to the main trace page. Okay, let's see if the refresh works. Okay, so till this step, my body, I mean, the source body is still there. Okay, and I use this property to store the payload. Fine, and then after this step, let's see what happens. So after this step, the payload is still there, right? Because I did not override this property. So this property will carry through within the purview of my iFlow. And if I see the body, it is overwritten by now. Why did it get overwritten? Any guesses? Any guesses, Janeshwari? Why did my payload get overwritten at this point? No? You can say no idea, that's not bad. Okay. Or you
I think
can
the
attempt.
payload logging content modifier we have uh, changed it.
No, no. So payload logging is after this. So let me tell you how this works. If I'm clicking here, the trace I'm looking at is before step, content before step, right? So here I'm showing you payload logging. So it is before the payload logging step has executed. This step, it is overwritten already.
Okay.
Okay. So consider this as a pipe. Okay. Typically, all integrations work in a pipeline fashion. Uh, where is my draw feature? Uh, okay, let's use this. So if this is a pipe, okay, and I mean, I put some something from here, one ball, for example, right? And from here, I'm calling another service. So maybe not a perfect example, but let's try. So from here, I have a pipe connector, right? It's like another pipe in between. Okay. So this is my content flowing from here, but I make an external call. This is giving me fresh data. So this data will overwrite my pipeline. Okay. So this is a very important concept. So what if, I mean, your next obvious question should be that what if I want to use this and this also? I want to use both, right? Or the call that I'm making to this HTTP service, right? Let's say this is an HTTP service API. I want to use this data, right? And I want to use the data that I'm putting here as input to this, right? And then I get output here. That is one way that I'm using the content modifier property to store the entire payload. Or in some cases, I can get the attributes of it. One, let's say in my payload, I have order and order a description. So, let's say I want to use order ID. So I can get that from a property, and while calling this, I can use this property, and then that's how it is. So always consider it as a pipeline which runs from left to right. Okay, it is the flow is always left to right, right? So whatever you okay, forget it. So whatever you data coming from left will be overwritten if I am making an external call, and if this external call is returning me any data, right, whether it is blank data also, right? Let's say I make a call and it is successful, and in the return it gives me a blank body. So even in that case, my request content will disappear from here. Okay. So what I did was I gave you an example of payload logging. So in this payload logging, what I did was like this we created together, right? So what I did was I typed that new original payload. What was my original payload, which is coming from Postman, and where did I store it? I stored it in a property at this step before. So you have to always consider it as a pipeline. That okay, if I want to use something from before, how will I use it? So I may be able to store it somewhere, right? There are we will further see in the future lessons that this is just one way. Even from the payload, there are ways that if I want to extract just this order ID or amount, I can also do that, right? Using expressions or XPath. In case of XML payload, XMath is used. So several ways, right? So I store the body here in a property, and then I reference this property while outputting this. So in the content modifier, whatever I will write, it will come in the final output, right? So in the original payload, I use the original payload, which was stored in a property, and in the new payload, I set the in dot body because that was anyways coming through my pipeline. Even if I don't write this, so let's say if I don't write this, then only the original payload will come. Okay,
Yeah.
clear?
Yes.
Okay. When you practice a little bit, I think it will be even further clear to you. So we saw, I mean, see, that's how I was saying before the start of our session is that you will build on the concept. So in this case, if you see, I used the HTTP, like this is a starting endpoint sender adapter. Then I used a content modifier to store the original payload body. And then I used a request reply to make a synchronous call to an external address. And then finally, I used content modifier to output both the before and after bodies. Okay. So far, so good. Any questions, Nursing, Dhaneshwari?
So yeah, so the in the rest like the new one, new payload, where have you written that means content of that particular body?
Here.
This is something syntax, I think, but the content which is coming in the body.
That is coming from this endpoint. This JSON placeholder type code post one. It is coming from here. Let's we used another one, yes, in the previous class, right? So let me show you a quick difference if I have that handy. Where is that? What was the name of it? Postman bin something. No? What is that you use, Dhaneshwari? Postman Echo, right?
Yeah. We in the demo we used HTTP bin, and while practicing I used Postman Echo.
.org/post, right? That was the URL, I believe.
Yes.
Hmm. No, that's a wrong URL. Let me see. Mm-hmm. It is wrong. Yes. Oh, why am I wasting time? Let me. I can look at here as well. was using the correct one in the first place. I don't know. Okay. Hmm. See, the payload changed, right? Because I changed the target endpoint. So whatever you can, this is a very simple example. So whatever we want to use, we can simply use it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So since we have some time, we'll limit it to 1 hour today, so that you can practice on this, and then we'll cover the next class. But just, I think I want to introduce you to the authorization concept with the OAuth token. So, where is my OAuth token that I have listed? Uh, no worries, we'll get it again. So if I can go to the, so I'll go to like just to get my key again to show you something. So right now I'm using a basic authentication, right? Client ID and client secret. But that is a very basic way, which is not one of the best security practices. Most of the places I mean, there are people, there are actual big clients who are still using basic authentication, but it is preferable to use OAuth, right? So there are three main kind of authentications that we typically use in a commercial world, right? So one is your basic, which is, like I said, the least secure way, which is your client ID and secret, or you can also say it as username and password. Then the second way is certificates. So what is certificate? So certificate is also similar to key, but what we do in case of certificate is that, um, for example, I have to connect CPI to SAP, right? So I can import SAP S/4HANA certificates within the CPI space. Typically, this is done by basis people, but it is good to know. And I can import the CPI certificate into the S/4HANA. So in that case, what will happen is I can just use basic authorization as along with a certification authorization. So this will be two-level authorization, right? So I can use both, or I can use no authorization with a certificate. So certificate will pre-authorize me, right? So certificate is nothing but a key, right? So you have your family members, and you have made three keys of your house. So you have given keys to everyone, right, in your house. So that is like giving a key to your house, and but there you can control the permissions as well. Like in today's world, there are digital locks as well, right? So you can create keys for everyone, and you can control those keys as well. That okay, if you want to uh, give specific authorization, that is like a certificate. So we're not looking at this today, but just wanted to let you know. And then we have OAuth, so that you know what are the kinds of authorizations that we use. There are several others as well, like JWT token, bearer token, right? But these I'll try to explain you within the OAuth space as well. But just know that there are on a high level basic auth certificates and the OAuth authentication. Okay. Now let's look at how OAuth authentication works. So the same iFlow, if I want to use OAuth authentication, what do I need to do? First step to do that, to achieve that is to get my key. You guys already have that, so let me retrieve my key as well. It's a bit slow. So this is my process integration runtime, and I've created one key. Let me copy this so that I don't lose it again. Okay, so if you see what are the parts of this key: client ID, client secret, token URL, and the general URL of my tenant. So for OAuth authorization, I'll take my token URL, which I get from this key. In the authorization in Postman, under authentication type, I will choose OAuth 2.0. And see, like I probably was using it, so I have it already, but let me put it again. So this is okay. And then I can use the same client ID and client secret, which I already have. If you just put double quotation marks here, you can access it. Okay. So what are the fields here? Let me- so don't need to touch it. This is comes by default. So this is header prefix, like which is prefixed to the token which is generated, and Postman automatically puts it in the header. We'll see how. And there's a feature to auto refresh token that we'll see. So configure new token. In the new token, you can give any name. This is not important. This is just for identification within the Postman space. Grant type is client credentials. Okay. Um, and then access token URL is the auth token URL taken from the key. Client ID is client ID from the key. Client secret is client secret from the key. And client authentication sent as basic auth header. Okay, so this is the way, and you can either send it in a header or in a body. Refresh token URL is the same URL. Basically, what it does is that you can configure that. Let's say you are very frequently practicing it, and you don't want to manually refresh it. So after a certain period of time, it will auto refresh your token. Right. For that, you can put the refresh token URL here. Right? After that, um, I can click on get new access token. So in this step, what it did was using the client ID and client secret, it called my uh, OAuth token URL, and while calling it, after calling it, it got this token. See how big this token is. Token is this big value, encrypted value basically, right? And then if you click on use token here, it says token added. Where did it add? If I go to headers authorization, and if I want to display it, so you can even verify when you do it on your own. You can verify it is the same token which just got generated. Okay, now if I send it again, it works. So at your iFlow side, there is no change, right? This is a change from outside because this is a pre-built concept by SAP. Uh, you don't need to do anything specific to do this. Now there are some further ways wherein the client ID and client secret. You can create multiple, of course, and you can create it by role wise, right? I remember, I think the when we were doing it, I probably would have shown it. When you create this, you can create specific roles, right? And then you can assign those roles to the key. So accordingly, your one consumer will be able to call certain iflows. So the same concept, right? And then based on the OAuth authorization, it will be able to call the certain iflows as well. So there is that RBAC, RBAC concept, right? Role based access concept, which is pre-built by SAP. You don't need to do anything from a developer standpoint. This is more of a security or the basis activity, but you should know this how this works. That is only if you know this, then you will be able to consult on the solutions. Okay, so this is how it works. So this is how the OAuth authorization works. Any questions so far?
No.
Okay, so this is clear, right? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I think um, we are good. I think the next step is to practice this. Let me stop the recording first.